With the decision made by the Traffic and Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing a writ associated with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. First, I'd like to recognize a couple of new commissioners. Dr. Lin Ming and Ms. Lisa Haller. So welcome to the commission. Look forward to working with you all. I believe Councilmember Huffman is in any other council people in the audience? Okay, great. Item 2.0, approval of the agenda. We have one revision to the agenda. It has been requested to remove item 6.5. Do we have a motion to approve item 2.0, approval of the agenda with the removal of 6.5?
Second.
It's been first and second. Is there any questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Approval of agenda has passed. Item 3.0, approval of the minutes from March 10th, 2025. Do we have a motion? We have a second?
Second.
It's been first and second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. We have a sign-in sheet for public comment. Is anybody else in the room needing to sign up for public comment? And then, Liga, real quick, we're doing it now or do it at the items?
You can do it at either, but you can do it now. It's listed on the agenda as now, but you can move it if you would like.
Okay. You know what, let's do it now because some of these items on the consent agenda, before we make a motion to remove it, we'd like to hear. So first, Charlie, excuse me if I butcher your last name. Wignerter? Ah, come on up anyway. Please state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. My name is Charlie Weingartner. I'm here on behalf of item 5.3. I'm a member of our local Vision Zero Advisory Committee as well. The short-lived cycle track on 9th Avenue North has long been a stated part of the Nashville Yards development. You can see it in their plans. It's found online. The cycle track was planned, designed, and implemented following all national and local standards. It made an important connection between Commerce Street and Church Street in an area that is rapidly becoming a highly pedestrianized zone. NDOT removed the bike lane hastily due to a small amount of negative feedback and are now relying on the position that the lane was not a part of the Connect Downtown plan. This was a unique situation where a developer wanted to bring greater multimodal connectivity to their development. That should be revered, championed, not removed. Connect Downtown should also be the floor of our ambitions, not the ceilings. Additionally, the loading zones proposed by NDOT today are not reflected in Connect Downtown's Maximize the Curb plans in any way. Relying on Connect Downtown as the logical basis for removing the bike lanes does not hold any water whatsoever. I can go into greater detail about the importance of 9th Avenue as a part of the greater connectivity network, but I'm afraid I won't have time in my public comment. I'm afraid that this item is not about, I understand that this item is not distinctly about bike lanes. However, if it is not about bike lanes, then why does the staff analysis reference them? Nonetheless, I'm asking that you vote for an indefinite deferral on this matter until a complete review of this connection can be completed. At a minimum, I ask you to reject the designs presented and require a solution that befits a highly pedestrian street. We've done a 180 turn from an important developer-requested downtown connection to loading and parking zones that will exacerbate the problems that exist in the area. Again, Connect Downtown should be the floor of our multimodal implementations and ambitions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Wesley Smith. Please state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. I'm Wesley Smith. I'm the programs director at Walk Bike Nashville. I'm actually here primarily for agenda item 6.3, but I think I'll be able to speak on that with NDOT when that comes. So I wanted to also comment on the agenda item 5.3. In my role at Walk Bike Nashville, work with NDOT closely.
Sorry, Mr. Smith. Pause this time, if you don't mind. Just for clarity, you only get one shot at public comment. So when the item comes up, we will not ask you to come back up to speak. So I just want to make sure you take this opportunity to speak on the matters that you would like. Sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to be clear.
I appreciate that.
If you don't mind restarting his time.
So I think I can speak on both in a minute. Just going to reiterate what Charlie said and what others are going to say after me. I work with NDOT on a pretty regular basis. I would also advocate for an indefinite deferral on this motion. We've gotten a lot of questions from the biking community, and rightfully so, and very little answers in terms of what happened here. I think it's very unlikely that NDOT just removed a bikeway because it wasn't in the plan. They had to have known that this was planned. So I think the public is owed some answers publicly and on the record before a decision about the future configuration of this street is made. So again, asking for an indefinite deferral on the loading zones on 9th Avenue as well. For the parking fee waiver, I'm not sure who from NDOT will present on that, but just from a walk bike perspective, we've been working closely with them on that. This will be the 21st annual Tour de Nash. And so I know waiving fees is not something that you all often do, but this is a community event. We're working with NDOT to have a car-free 5-mile loop for this ride. And it's also kicking off a series of open streets events this summer that we're still working to finalize. And so, yeah, it would make it a lot easier for this event to go on. It's a 3-hour closure from 9 a.m. to noon for the parking spots that would be affected. I guess I won't have the opportunity to answer any questions, but obviously we would very much appreciate the commission's support on this. It will help us make this a better community event and help us financially make it work as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Next person, last name Hall. Please state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Hey, Brandon, my name is Manon Hall. I live at 1629 Good Day Court, and I work downtown. I emailed y'all earlier, but I need to make this on the record. A mistake was made in removing the bike lane, a two-way mobility path. It is before this body to codify it, to brush it over, to pave it and paint over it without addressing it. You were told and will be told that this has nothing to do with bike lanes. That is not true. I personally do not own a bike, but I love utilizing dock bike share across the city. The cycle track was not only incredible bike infrastructure, but pedestrian infrastructure. It narrowed the road and acted as a buffer to the sidewalk, making it much safer to walking on the sidewalk and crossing the street. I request that you do not defer or deny the proposed changes on 9th Avenue North between Commerce Street and Church Street. Beneficial public infrastructure was removed unceremoniously and without warning. Why? The proposed loading zone was not included in Connect Downtown either. The alleged reprogrammed lane for 10th Avenue North is in the Phase 2 section of the Connect Downtown plan, which is scheduled for 2027 to 2029. I'm unaware of any lanes for Phase 1, which started last year and goes through 2026, that have been built. We are over a year into Phase 1. So does that mean the connection would be postponed another year or two after an acceptable multimodal connection was already built and removed? Do you see how ridiculously easy it was to destroy a public good without due diligence or engaging the public? But to get anything built, it takes years and years and round after round of public engagement. Please postpone the changes so the public can gain a clear, documented understanding of how the city did a 180 from a developer-initiated mobility lane to needing an additional loading zone and keeping a parking lane. Decisions to remove good multimodal infrastructure should not be made behind closed doors. If possible, please approve the removal of the parking to add the mobility lane back. If not, ask for a highly pedestrianized zone with a speed limit of 20 miles per hour or less. Share rows, increase signage, and that the proposed infrastructure, like the 10th Avenue mobility lane and Connect Downtown, be built with urgency. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. If you could say your name for the record, you have 2 minutes.
Hello, my name is Dylan Ringel. I am the student advisor of NDOT's Vision Zero Advisory Committee, and there are many unanswered questions here regarding the developer-led and already planned, then abruptly removed bike lanes on 9th Avenue North. 9th Avenue North is a critical connection for downtown Nashville, connecting Church Street, Commerce Street, and Broadway, as well as joining planned bike lanes on Union Street and the Nashville Yards development. And more work must be done to determine the future of this road. I also request that you at least indefinitely defer the decision until a comprehensive analysis of the 9th Avenue North corridor is complete. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremiah? If you don't mind stating your name for the record, and
Of course.
you have 2 minutes.
Jeremiah Wooten. I am here on a different item on 5.1, asking that you all remove this from consent to answer a couple of confusing things raised and not raised in the staff report. The first thing, if you follow along with me on page 2 of your staff report, under crash history and risk factors, it states, over the past 3 years, 2 fatal pedestrian crashes have occurred in this specific mid-block location. Over the weekend, I went through the TDOT state database of crashes. I went through NDOT's public-facing Vision Zero dashboard, as well as I'm also a member of the Vision Zero Action Committee, and as well as our internal crash database, and none of those had a single crash on this stretch in the last 5 years. So I'm a little confused where it's really concerning to me that there's 2 fatal pedestrian crashes that are not showing up in local or state databases. And that makes me wonder how many more fatal crashes there are that we have somewhere at NDOT but is not making its way to other departments. So that concerns me. The last fatal crash on Clarksville Pike was in 2020, and it was 3 blocks away from this. So that's concerning to me. Second, if you actually look at the LiDAR data in the packet, it shows on page 4 the number of pedestrians crossing at each location. And location 4, which is the proposed location for the crossing, is by far the lowest number of crossings. And we know that pedestrians are going to go, what's the most convenient path? So if we're putting a crosswalk in the location that no one wants to cross right now, and they're crossing 100 feet that way and 100 feet that way, they're going to continue to cross in those locations where you see tremendously more people, right? It's the same way when you walk down the street and you see a dirt path through the grass because people didn't want to go up to the corner and turn. They just cut through those desire paths. So I'm asking that you pull it off consent so staff can address those items and hopefully provide some clarity, since the staff analysis does not answer why a different location was proposed than the LiDAR data supports. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Huffman, please state your name for the record.
Jordan Huffman.
You have the floor.
Yes, thank you. And thank you all for everything that you do and for serving on this commission. It's definitely appreciated by the city, and you all do good work. I'm speaking to you on item 6.1. This is an item that's in my council district, and just wanted to add a little bit of color to this specific issue. This intersection in particular, the intersection of Jacksonian Road and Bonnet Creek Drive, is located in what's called the Bonnas neighborhood. The back part of this neighborhood is growing by the day. There's a new development that's going to be going in probably pretty close to this time next year, which is going to add more traffic to Jacksonian. And I tell you that because we've had more and more drivers speeding down Jacksonian. Specifically through this stretch, it's a dead straightaway until you get to the stop sign at Plantation. This has been an item that's been of concern of mine for about the past year. Last spring, I initially requested a four-way stop here, and that was denied by NDOT. We then discussed some potential traffic calming options, such as just regular traffic speed cushions, traffic tables. I was told that those would not work because of the rate of speed that's on Jacksonian. It would make them disintegrate, so that's not an option. And in September 2024, we had and I'll just call it a very poorly constructed roundabout installed. There was not enough space that was made for specifically school buses, construction vehicles that are trying to get through. It was causing a lot of issues, and that was removed. So I don't even know if I'm asking you for a four-way stop, but what I'm asking you is for some help. There's a true safety issue on this. Kids walk to Hermitage Elementary every day down this road. There's no sidewalk here. They have to cut through yards, and I really appreciate y'all's consideration in this, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 5.0, approval of consent agenda. Is there any items that we would like to pull for discussion?
Can we pull, sounds like 5.1 and 5.3?
Any others?
I would support that recommendation.
Okay, approval of the consent agenda. I'll read the items that we're going to approve. So item 5.2, authorization for new always stop for Jones Avenue and Delway Drive / Flamingo Drive requested by NDOT. Item 5.4, authorization for no parking restrictions on west side of South 5th Street between Main Street and Davidson Street with deletion of existing no parking on event days restrictions requested by NDOT. Item 5.5, authorization for a new turn restriction, no left turns on Eastland Avenue from Gallatin Avenue to North 12th Street. Do we have a motion to approve these items? We have a second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's passed. So item 5.1 and 5.3 will move down to the regular agenda. So with that, we will move to regular agenda and start with item 5.1, authorization for new pedestrian hybrid beacon at 2400 Clarksville Pike, requested by NDOT. Mr. Smith, you have the floor.
Thank you. This request is for a new pedestrian hybrid beacon in the 2400 block of Clarksville Pike. This is a little bit to the south and east of the new transit hub that's on Clarksville Pike. We have installed some LiDAR devices in that area, and I can tell you what some of the graphics are in the staff analysis report. The item to your left, the consent item 5.1, LiDAR pedestrian trajectories at 2400 Clarksville Pike. These are a diagram of pedestrian activity that we have observed at this location. To the north is a Save-A-Lot. There's some residential buildings to the south, and what we have seen is pedestrians crossing mid-block, at the block, basically everywhere. And that kind of goes hand in hand with another graphic where you see the near miss heat map. That's it right there. The blue tracks are showing you pedestrian activities. The red shows the near miss that occurs that's been detected by the LiDAR when a pedestrian is detected in the proximity of a faster moving vehicle. If you'll notice, there's a red line to the north. That's just somebody walking along the sidewalk and vehicles moving by. So that's not where the problem is, but the problem you see is the red blob that's crossing mid-block between the residential structures to the south and the Save-A-Lot to the north. The other graphics that we show, we've looked at pedestrian crossings by location along the corridor. And I'd like to point out this particular type of pedestrian hybrid beacon will be, I believe, the first that incorporates LiDAR detection. So it's going to allow for passive pedestrian input so that the pedestrian doesn't necessarily have to push the button to cross, but when it detects that pedestrian stepping out of the roadway, it will activate the pedestrian hybrid beacon. I've observed pedestrians in other corridors where we've installed pedestrian hybrid beacons. Sometimes a pedestrian will use the crosswalk we provided, but they won't push the button. And I'm glad that they're using the crosswalk, but I'm dismayed that they're not utilizing the flashing beacon, by pushing the button and just waiting a few seconds and then proceeding safely across there. We heard a comment where somebody had a question about the fatal crash at this location. I'm looking at Ash to Ware right now, and my data doesn't show that, but I'll have to confirm that with the engineers on my staff.
Thank you. Questions from commissioners?
Yes, sir.
I have a couple of questions. First, what is the difference between the PHB and a crosswalk?
The PHB includes the signal infrastructure that is a traffic control device. The crosswalk are the white piano keys or the the pavement markings on the ground. The PHB includes the infrastructure where you see the red signal, and when it is activated, the PHB should begin flashing. And as you know, a flashing signal indicates you read that as if it were a stop sign. Okay, the PHB will then proceed with a red phase, meaning it's like a red traffic signal, and no vehicles can traverse while it is solid red. And then as the pedestrian exits those lanes, it will begin flashing again. It will do that wig-wag, that blink, okay? And in the event that a pedestrian has already crossed most of the street and the part of the street where he's already crossed, if vehicles have stopped there and there are no more pedestrians to cross, the vehicle can then proceed again as if it were a stop sign.
Second question, what's the feasibility of changing from the proposed location to one that has what appears to be more crossing, like Area 3 or 2? And what was the feasibility or the rationale for choosing location 4?
The rationale was the crash history and the near misses that have happened at this location. This is not the only safety improvement that we're doing on this corridor. There is an existing PHB to the north and west, and this isn't the last time that we're coming back to this corridor. This just happens to be the next iteration in increasing driver and pedestrian safety along the corridor. There will be other things that are coming in other months.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So to clarify, it's going in number 4 because of the near misses? That's where it's more of an issue?
Because of pedestrian activity and the near misses that we've seen.
Okay, I guess it looks from the map that like the red line going across the street is actually, it is in the second zone.
It looks like to the north side, I would agree. It looks like it's in that zone 2 and zone 3 to the south. Now, just keep in mind that the red are where we see near misses, but if you go back to the previous slide, notice how there's still a very heavy blue pedestrian movement all over the place, from the driveway to the south. It's partially in that zone 2, it's partially in zone 3.
When you talk about other things that could potentially be happening, I mean, obviously, if we put the crossing further to the south, I guess, is that south? So in zone 4, would there be access to get into the parking lot, or would we expect people to then cross perpendicular wall?
There's a little bit of a terrain challenge in getting to that part. I have been out to the site and observed a small amount of pedestrian activity. Just happens to be at the time that I made that observation. But they're crossing where they want to cross. It supports that pedestrian movement. If you move very far off that driveway, it's less inviting to the pedestrian to cross there.
Would the LiDAR, is it going to activate only at the crossing, or like the moment a pedestrian steps into the street on anywhere on the screen, would it then activate?
I don't know what the range of that LiDAR detection is, but it's my understanding that when someone uses the crossing as it's designed, it should detect the presence of a pedestrian stepping into the road, okay, and will activate the PHB. It shouldn't detect somebody, a half a block away.
Thanks. I guess I'm still a little confused, because I think what I heard is we want to put it where we have the most near misses, and people are going to cross where they're going to cross. And I mean, I see 2 parking lots, and it looks like people are kind of going from one to the other pretty clearly, and that's where those near misses are happening. Did we look at putting it there? Did we look at putting it right there on that line between 2 and 3?
The parking area, you see, the Sable lot is to the north and east, and that parking area is elevated a little bit off of the roadway, and so again, it's not inviting for the pedestrian to traverse there.
Well, I would disagree, because it seems pretty darn inviting, because they're doing it and they're almost getting hit. And so what I want to know from the department is, did we look at putting it there?
I don't know other locations where we might have looked at it or might have not, but again, this is not approval of the design, this is just approval of a location.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this location, if I'm being honest, because it looks like we're putting it where people are not being hit or almost being hit, and we're putting it where they're going to have to go out of their way. And so knowing how people use streets, they're probably still going to be crossing over here and having near misses. And I want to make sure if we're spending money to put this in to make people safer, that they're actually going to be using it. Yeah, but it matters where in the block it is.
Yes.
So that's where I'm struggling with this location.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Smith, a couple related questions regarding the location. Looking at where the parking lot driveways appear to be, if it were to be moved there, was there consideration of the cars turning left or right?
Yes, ma'am, that would be taken into account when the design is developed. This is, I don't have a design for it, so I can't tell you exactly where this will be located, but it will be located where you see people are crossing.
Okay, my second question is on the infrastructure piece. You've mentioned, of course, the beacon, and it will be automated when the pedestrian steps in, whether they push the button or not, and that there would not be the presence of piano keys.
Oh, no, there will be.
Oh, there will be?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you said there were not, and I was a little concerned
no,
about that.
No, there absolutely will be, but, and hopefully people will use that crossing as it's designed, but they just won't have to push, they will not have to push a button to activate the signal. It will detect them automatically.
If they do push a button, will there be
It'll operate like every other PHB that we've installed.
So there'll be a cross now with...
It'll activate that red signal, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions? just let him go, we'll come back.
So does the near miss heat map, do we have another heat map that shows just the actual crossings of where the most crossings are happening, as opposed to just?
Would you go back a little bit to the little spaghetti model there? That's where the crossings are happening.
This is difficult to decipher where the most crossings are happening.
Oh, sir, they're crossing everywhere.
Okay. No, I don't have another.
So I guess I'm trying to visualize this on the map, and what it looks like to me is this seems very close to where the bus stop is. Is that?
It's close. It is, it's a little bit to the south and east of that transit facility.
Well, there's a south and northbound stop on 24th and that street. I forget the name of it. Clarksville Pike.
So,
In addition to
yeah.
transit center.
Well, I guess the transit
that
center
right?
is down the street, right?
Yeah, there's signalized intersections that are there. There's a new PHB that is installed to the north and west of there. And I would like to point out that even TDOT has installed PHBs in relative proximity to one another on a state highway. On Murfreesboro Road, there are a pair of, well, I say new PHBs. These were installed in 2024. But yes, they are relatively close to one another. That's true. And these will be similarly kind of close to each other. But what we found is that a lot of times a pedestrian won't go, a block away to a signalized intersection and cross at a crosswalk there.
Yeah,
And the heat map and the pedestrian, the spaghetti map are showing you where those pedestrians are in fact crossing.
Yeah, and I wanted to pull this off consent just because I thought it was such a great job of showing data. And I think as we dove into it a little bit more, and I'm happy that somebody brought it and took it off consent for us here. I think it might be a good idea to see, and maybe we get kind of WeGo's perspective on it, just to kind of add into some of that planning, because that seems to be what we're looking to do, when in reality, this is people who live across the street going back and forth. And ideally, they're gonna just go right out of their driveway and cross the street, no matter where we put this thing. So maybe it could be something, I would be in support of a deferral, maybe just to have that information to look at it and see if that is an option for a specific location for this.
Councilperson?
Thanks. I also would like to know why we can't put it on the line between 2 and 3, because that does appear to be where the most crossings are and where the most near misses are. And I think if we're not going to put it there, we need a really good justification, because people are still going to cross where they're crossing today. If they have to go out of their way, they're not necessarily going to do that. So if we want them to use it, we need to put it where they're naturally crossing today and where they're naturally in harm's way today.
That's understood and agree, and this request is for a new PHB in the 2400 block. So it will go where we are seeing, the pedestrian heat map. That is kind of on the border.
Sir, I
between
wasn't
2
done
and 3.
speaking. So we need to use our best judgment to spend taxpayer money where it
Absolutely.
can keep people safe. We're looking at a whole block. We see a very clear heat map. And if we defer this today, which I hope we will, because I can't support spinning it halfway down the block today, we need to put it somewhere in this area where people are crossing and almost getting hit. And so I would like NDOT to be able to answer why it wanted it down there when people are almost getting hit up here.
Okay, we are talking about the same spot. We want to put it here.
No, you're talking about putting it down there, and I'm talking about putting it up here.
That's,
So we're talking the location within the zone, the 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
I think the suggestion was in 4. Seems like there's a lot of traffic in 2. So just how we get to that specific location is what we're
Correct.
asking.
Correct, because people aren't going to walk all the way down to zone 4 when they're currently crossing in
That's
the
right.
line between zones 2 and 3.
Agreed. Any other questions?
I would also support a fellow commissioner's suggestion to receive some input from WeGo relative to the location in proximity to, as I understand, there is a second, or a bus stop separate from the transit center within proximity.
Okay, I agree. Anybody else? So a couple questions from, it sounds like the design is pretty critical to our decision or our consideration. What is the process? I don't know if it's a legal question or Mr. Smith. If we defer, approve, or what have you, it sounds like it's necessary and we'll get to a point where we'll need something. But if it gets approved, is it the process that the design can then come back to us and then we review and approve the design, or does the body have any, what are our bumpers here with regards to what
You're authorizing a new PHB within this block.
and then you all take,
NDOT will then proceed with the design and installation at that point.
so if the approval, whether it's today or in the future, includes some parameters around coordination with other entities and some of those things, does that have to happen in order for, like,
We'll
incorporate?
make sure that happens.
Okay.
Yes.
Did, legal, did y'all have a comment to that too?
I think that I would just highlight that in the charter, under section 11.904, where you will find the authority of the Traffic and Parking Commission, per the charter, it says the establishment of traffic control signals. I'm hesitant to say that design is within the authority of the Traffic and Parking Commission.
So the ask here is essentially, here's the data behind it. We would then approve, if we approve the PHB, they would then be obligated to design something within that block.
Yes, I think that's correct, and they would have to use their engineering standards and judgment to design the traffic control signal.
Gotcha. Question?
Yeah, I think I would just note that with what we've been presented today, I think we probably do need one here, but I'm not sure the department has thought through it enough that I can approve them going forward today.
I just wanted to better understand, okay, approval here, there's been a good amount of questions around the design, location, and all that, just so this body knows that once this review and approval is for something to happen in that block, but from there, it's their discretion to design and construct and do whatever, whether it's in zone 1, 2, 3, or 4. I have been to that transit center up there and had the opportunity to work on that transit center, and I know there's a lot of upgrades with regards to sidewalks and things along the Clarksville Pike corridor, and specifically within the 26th block. Within this block, there's a significant amount of crosswalks and signals there already. And I don't know what that coordination from WeGo looks like, but with there being 2 bus stops, the transit center, the crosswalks, there's an abundance amount of opportunities for people to cross safely. And just judging by this heat map, a PHB anywhere up through there, I don't know what all the options are, but there may be something else to corral or get people to use a crosswalk, because I'm with fellow commissioners. Wherever you put the PHB here, it looks like they're just trying to get over there the best they can.
The intent is to install it where you see the heat map showing the pedestrian activity.
I guess the question is, though,
We don't want to install it, if you'll notice on the bottom right-hand corner, I have a little a map location that simply identifies the 2400 block of Clarksville Pike.
but I guess there's, 100 feet away, there's a crosswalk that they're not using. So, go ahead.
That kind of clarifies, I think, for me, on the stuff that we were provided, there's a star, and that seemed to indicate where you were planning to put this.
Could you go to the next slide?
So if we were to kind of make a motion that said the mid-block within zones 2 and 3, would that be a more specific motion that would then also allow for engineering judgment within that space?
I think I'm trying to highlight in this vicinity map, this is showing you a larger area. You can see the WeGo facility to the north and west, and we do coordinate installation of signals like this with WeGo. If you'll go on to the next, please. Now hold right there. The slide you see to the right-handed side, those are MTA bus stops. Okay, that's not indicating that we're going to install a PHB in Zone 4. What we're saying is that right there in the vicinity of Zone 2 and 3, but around, close to those driveways, that's where we want to put this signal.
So the first photo where the star was is where,
That identifies the 2400 block of Clarksville.
and the star shows where you're intended to. Yeah.
That just simply, that
So
shows
that
the location.
clarifies the location.
I
And that-
mean, it clarifies it, but to be clear, 1, 2, 3, 4, potentially 5, 6 people have asked if it was going in Zone 4, and we were told Zone 4, Zone 4, Zone 4. So I continue to have concerns about the planning stage that we are in for this.
Yeah,
And I'm continue to be concerned that we keep asking the same question only now for the course to have changed. If what you're saying is that it's definitely not going in Zone 4, then it's definitely not going in Zone 4, but we have had this whole 22-minute conversation about it being in Zone 4.
Speak to the street view at all.
I'm sorry, say again.
Speak to the street view at all. You have it there.
Okay, thank you.
I think there's also a concern, just looking at the street view, the management of traffic coming in and out of those driveways at this location.
That's the trickiest part.
That was one of my concerns as well. The driveway.
So,
And again, this request is simply for approval for us to design a PHB in the 2400 block of Clarksville Pike. And this is where we want to put it, but we have to keep in mind that we do have those driveways to contend with. There may be some utilities that we don't know about until we, get a little bit further into design. But you are looking at the location where we wish to place this signal.
so, and from what I've heard from commissioners, the design and the clarity on what that looks like is the challenge.
If legal may, I would also refer the commission to, it's an ordinance 12.12.010, installation, chief traffic engineer authority. It says the Department of Public Works, which is now NDOT, shall place and maintain traffic control signs, signals, and devices when is required, and it goes on. But I think it's clear that NDOT and the engineers use their engineering judgment and the standards that they have to decide where to place a traffic control signal. You approve the placement, but not necessarily the design and installation process. Or where, because there are going to be multiple considerations for, according to engineering standards, that they're going to have to take into account.
So with that being said, I think it's important for a deferral to better understand the placement and the location with the understanding of how we're not asking you for full design, but just better understand how we're going to manage traffic. If this is indeed the location, and the coordination with WeGo, managing traffic in and out of these driveways, and some sort of understanding or, past experience that, these will help corral people to, I know you can't make people use them, but get them to utilize that PHB. Question?
Chair, may I ask Mr. Smith a question?
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, in NDOT's recommendation and all the great work that you all have done on this to improve safety, which I think we all here very much appreciate, could you inform us, has there been input or engagement from the community or any of the neighborhood groups in relation to this specific infrastructure safety improvement? Or is that part of your process?
That's part of the process. I'm not aware of the specifics of which community groups have been engaged with. That's something I can get that back to you at another date.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Can we move forward a little bit on the can we look to the right a little bit? So they're just walking straight out of people walking out of their apartments and just crossing the street?
That's correct.
And that's relatively close to where you are proposing to put it.
That's also correct. Now, as a practical matter, if you'll notice, there is a very large electrical service pole that is to the northwest of that driveway. I don't know that that is a particularly good candidate spot for it. Perhaps that gets relocated. I don't know. Again, we're not that far into design. But it's things like this that you have to take under consideration. What's the best place to put a PHB, because that does include a pole and a flashing signal, and you have to be a certain distance away from infrastructure like that. But that's something that we do all the time. We did that, it's been done recently, I'd say 2024, on Murfreesboro Road.
Question?
It's just a comment also. When y'all get through this infrastructure and design process, I just wanted to point out, I'm familiar with a similar improvement that was made on Demumbrian Hill in the Midtown Music Row neighborhood, and which is the same beacon technology.
That's correct. That's another recent installation. I'd forgotten about that one.
Okay, that's fine. Just as a word of caution, there is a lot of confusion for drivers with this technology. And I was with a community member a couple days ago who relayed a story of his vehicle being hit from behind because he stopped due to the yellow light. So as I understand, there's red and yellow.
There should just simply be a flashing red and a solid red. If we're talking about a yellow, then we may be talking about something a little bit different.
Okay.
Again, the Demumbrian Hill is one I would have to go look at, but I don't think that has a yellow phase.
It does, but nonetheless, so this would be all red. So it would be clear to drivers how to acknowledge the sign, the flashing red light. I think we want to make sure of that. So we're not causing vehicular crashes.
We had similar conversations when we began to install roundabouts. Because it's something new, drivers have to get used to, how do you pass through a PHB? How do you pass through a roundabout? And it takes a little bit of a learning curve.
Any other questions? You got a question, Mr. Gibbs?
I was going to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Statement and a motion. I think that the committee members up here agree that this is a good idea. We're just a little bit uncomfortable with the understanding of the location. So what I propose in my motion is that this be sent back to NDOT to answer some of these questions. Then you come back to us and tell us, we picked this location and this is why. And at that time, when you come back with that information, I will be one of the people that will move to approve it.
How long do you think you need?
30 days. We'll be right back next month.
Motion to defer for 30 days?
Motion to defer for 30 days.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been first and second. Any questions on the motion or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The deferral for 30 days has passed. Item 5.3, authorization for reconfigured loading zones on 9th Avenue North between Commerce Street and Church Street, requested by NDOT. Mr. Schultz? Please state your name for the record. You could have used the mic that's already on.
Red's scary for me. It's Brent Schultz, Connect Downtown Coordinator with NDOT. How can I help you?
You were listed on this, on item 5.3. So was hoping to get some, explanation and background on it.
Sure. My background on this is basically that when asked about it, I'm the keeper. Oops, I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm the keeper of the Connect Downtown plan that was approved by Metro Council. My job is to make sure, that when all the projects are going on downtown, they're complying with the plan. One of the big things is the mobility lanes in the Connect Downtown plan. 9th Avenue does not require any bike lanes on it. The bike lanes come down Commerce and shoot up to 10th Street. That's where they're supposed to go. On the restriping plan, they put it back exactly how it was before. I met with the businesses around there just to make sure they're going to get their parking and loading zones back. One of the things I want to point out, that loading zone, that 2-hour zone over there in front of the Westview, that was there before. We're putting it back. They need that because they have residents in that building. So that's going back in. That's what the recommendation is for that sign. On the west side of the street, that is a loading zone area, and at night, a passenger drop-off, or it could be a rideshare area. The reason that is, and I'm recommending it go back in there, is because it was on the east side of the street. So it's going from one side to the other. Basically, it's just putting back into the street what was there before. Now, one other thing that everybody's got to remember, Rosa, that becomes a transit corridor. We can't do valet over there. There's developers already working on that block from 9th over to Rosa or 8th. That's the transit corridor. There's a transit corridor inside of the interstate. That's going to be a dedicated lane. It's going to have queue jumps on it. That is going to be the way we move people more quickly with Chime funding and we've got another 20,000 people coming to that area inside Connect Downtown. We have to get other ways to move people. Bike lanes too. Bike lanes are a big part of it, but they're not on 9th, they're on 10th. And we need to keep working on those projects. We need to keep moving them forward. And I'm recommending this be approved. It's really just what was there before going back in.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Ms. Holler?
Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. I do have a question, and I want to thank those from the community who came and took time today to speak on this issue. And my question is actually not as much about the bike lane it is about the bike lane, but also if this were to be converted to loading zone, the connector street that is referenced, the Exchange Street. We're talking about right by the Pinnacle, correct?
If you look there on the plan, see the alley there on the west side see the 50 and then the 105 number? Just north of that, there's a loading zone on the west side that's needed. And why is that needed? It's not just for the Pinnacle. It's for them. They do have loading they do have some loading and valet, I think, on their site. It's needed for that block because they have no way to get their deliveries or their services. So we need to put that in for those sites.
I drove down to it last night, so I'm familiar with the area.
I've been there a lot too.
The intent is just mainly service the Pinnacle venue?
No, it will be for that block in the yard and for the developments that are being planned and coming between 9th and Rosa.
Right, but for that side of the street, it is the west side of the street.
It's not just for, that's a very small 36-foot wide street.
Right.
It's not going to be just for the yard. It'll be for that block to the east. Do you see all the buildings in there from
Right, but right now,
Commerce all the way up to Church Street?
the buildings.
That is being developed I've talked to the developers.
Right,
They're planning some big, large projects. They need a loading zone.
but currently, it's primarily the Pinnacle and then the new Emory and Everett.
There is a Pinnacle there, and then the yard development to the west.
Yes, okay. So my
Yes.
question is regarding that Exchange Street. There were bollards there last night. I'm not sure if that Exchange Street is open. But
I don't
May I
know.
finish?
Does anybody
But
know?
if it is, as you are coming out of there onto Ninth, with this loading zone with large vehicles, how would that work with the sight lines?
Well, they've designed, the engineers have designed that and stamped those plans. So there's going to be clear zones around those areas to make sure people can see around them. And they've designed them in. You see those little I call them little islands painted on the street. That's to keep a clear zone or modified clear zone area. I'm not an engineer. I didn't stamp the drawings, but that was a
I know we heard
stamped
from the
drawing.
community some comments about pedestrian safety and walkability and how that would be afforded if these were to convert to loading zones. Clearly, it's hard to see pedestrians when there's big, large trucks parked there.
Yeah, and they'll be there early in the morning. Most of the trucks that do their servicing in the downtown, they're very early in the morning to provide, but we need a place for people to get their goods delivered and for service companies to park and provide services.
Is there a sidewalk on that side?
There's a sidewalk on the west side. There's a very small sidewalk on the east side.
So just for clarity on the pedestrians, the traffic they'll have a clear sight on the sidewalk because the loading zone's in the road outside of the sidewalk, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Any other questions, Ms. Hall?
Yeah, just while you're saying that most of the loading and unloading will be during the day, but it would be reserved for tour buses it could be
Yeah,
used
it
as
could
a
be.
loading zone, particularly with the.
What I'm proposing there is to do exactly like what we're doing in the Connect Downtown plan. If you look at all the loading zones in the flexible curb plan, if there's a loading zone, we flex them. From 4 a.m. to 4 p.m., they're loading zones, 4 p.m. to 4 a.m., they're passenger drop-off or ride-share pickup drop-off areas. That's what we're proposing for that small, little, I think it's 80 or 90 feet long area. It's not very big. But that will give some relief to the businesses around there to get their deliveries and get services. Otherwise, if you want to take that out, there'll be no place for them to get deliveries on that east side. I would not recommend you do that.
Ms. Hall, do you have any more questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Corrington?
So I guess my first question is, the majority of the flex loading zones are identified in Connect Downtown. I think this is a good spot for a loading zone on the west side, but it's not identified in Connect Downtown.
No, sir, it's not. It is
So-
not, it's not. That, you're right. You're right about that, Neil. But I would recommend, I've studied that plan significantly, and I'd very much recommend you do that there. I think it's going to work. I think we can watch it. I think we can work with you and those businesses around there to see if it's functioning correctly. We have enforcement. They know what's going on there. They can keep an eye on it too. And if there's problems with it, we can adjust it with you. We can bring something back for you to adjust.
Yeah, and I guess that.
Actually, I
line
think
of
the
thinking
director
there-
has authority to make some adjustments in the code right now.
And it seemed to work when the bike lane was there too, and that's part of this is a change of Connect Downtown. It's okay to change things and adjust it, and that's where we're at on that. With that, do we have, what is identified in Connect Downtown is that transit priority corridor, which on Rosa Parks.
It is. It's
Which kind of takes away some of the curb use for that block on the east side.
Yes.
Do we have any concerns that we would be changing our plan for Rosa Parks that then would impact what we were doing on 9th?
I've not seen anybody propose, but maybe you all know something coming. I've not heard any changes for that transit corridor. Matter of fact, I've just heard we're planning, it's one we're supposed to be planning quick, from the beginning of the project and get it ready to go. I know there's been conceptual layouts on it, but nothing firm. But I'm telling everybody who develops on there, sorry, no valet. Every bike, I want to let you also know, every time, I have a GIS layer that I had Matthew prepare for me. Anybody that comes to my office and when I do the development reviews, if there's a bike lane there, nope, no valet, no loading. We've had people want to do the lay-by lanes, Oh, I said that wrong. It's called lay-bys, I guess. But, the cutouts where people want to pull over, no, you cannot put that by a bike lane. Because I don't want our bikers going by one of those and then cars pulling in and out and hitting them. It's too dangerous. So we're saying no on that too.
And in this layout now, they don't necessarily have a way to get from Commerce to Church safely in that sense.
They will when Anna and Val design Commerce, get that improved, get Commerce done. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff on Church. Here's the problem with our bike plan downtown. Commerce and Demumbra and our islands. We've got to build the rest of that system and then make the connections and make it as safe as possible with our engineers and the bike community.
Okay. So there's also, within this recommendation, it is to maintain the 2-hour parking that is on the east side.
Yes.
Which is roughly a spot and a half worth.
Yes.
Why are we proposing 2-hour limited parking in front of a massive development with a concert hall? Wouldn't that space be highly in demand?
Because it's right in front of the Westview and we're putting back what was there before. That's what my understanding is from our staff.
Currently, the traffic schedule currently has a parking area designated on the east side of 9th Avenue North with 2-hour time-limited parking. It also has an existing loading zone on the east side. This was a loading zone that was behind the old Nashville Sports Building, and that's being flipped to the other side, to the west side.
Okay. So what you're proposing is we're approving a new loading zone on the east side. We are removing the loading zone, approving it on the west side, removing it on the east side, and maintaining the 2-hour limited parking that is already there on the east side.
Yes.
That's correct. Okay. Although the west side will have that dual purpose passenger loading
Flex
in the evening.
loading zone.
So it's a little flex, so there's a little change to it.
Do we envision having the 2-hour limited parking come before us at some point in the near future as it?
On the west side?
East side.
You mean in front of the Westview, that little 2-hour area to come in and do what? I didn't understand that.
Will that be something that you'll bring to us to see if that should be a loading zone instead of a parking? I mean, I just envision that
No,
the first
right
person
now.
who figures out that they can park there for a concert is going to go park there.
Yeah, and then we'd have to get out there and enforce it and write a ticket for it.
They got 2 hours.
I would recommend that we just keep it the way it was for that business. Put back the 2-hour parking like it was for them. They have, the way they explain it, they have their residents who want to come in there, park for a little bit, drop off groceries or something, go in, maybe someone's moving in, they just want to drop off something real quick to their unit. That's the way the property owner explained it to me, that he would like that area back. And we're just putting it back to what it was.
Just for clarity, this recommendation doesn't ask for a 2-hour. We're only talking about the loading zone here.
Yes, I believe, right, is that correct?
What I'm understanding.
Yes.
So the 2-hour piece.
Yeah, so we don't
isn't a part
need
of this.
approval for the 2-hour, we're just putting it back in. But we are.
I just
we
want to make sure I'm
We
understanding.
want to move the loading from east to the west side. It's a pretty simple request. I'd appreciate you to approve it.
And that's, my question was just to clarify if you thought that would be coming before us in the future.
Oh, in the
to
future,
change.
on the east side, the 2-hour?
Yes.
No, I don't, not right now, I don't think so. But maybe somebody will later, I don't know. But I'm not. And I'd appreciate, Neil, if you would approve this. Aren't I good at asking for the sale?
Yeah. I mean, the loading zone was the west, or gosh, we're all screwed up here now.
I know that,
the west side one is a good idea as a flexible loading zone. It does seem like we are being presented with a difficult choice. I do have one question for legal, if that's okay, within this. And this does somewhat pertain to what this street was looking like. Does our commission have control over the direction of travel of bikeways?
Over bikeways?
Yes.
No.
Why not?
If you look at your charter authority, it lists, you have A through G. It says the location and time when parking shall be limited, places where parking shall be prohibited entirely or only during certain hours, the establishment of stop sign controls for through streets or isolated intersections, the establishment of traffic signal controls, the direction in which traffic may use any street or portion of a street, restrictions on the size of vehicles using certain streets, and the establishment of speed zones upon certain metropolitan streets and roads based upon the findings of the commission when such zones are properly signposted, the speed indicated on the sign shall be the legal speed limit.
So E, the direction in which traffic may use any street or portion of a street. Why do we not have authority over the direction of travel for bikeways?
I don't think that what is contemplated there is for you to have authority to determine the direction in which bikes travel or where bikes are traveling. I think that is under the NDOT discretion. There is also a separate code provision that discusses parking in bike lanes. And the only authority that I think this commission would have when it comes to bike lanes is say that NDOT wanted to keep this bike lane and they were going to offer parking at certain times in this bike lane. It would be up to you to approve the parking on the curb, but it is not up to you where there are bike lanes or in what direction the bikes are traveling. Also, I'm assuming that bikes can travel in either direction on a bike lane.
No.
No? But I still don't believe that it was in your authority, and I don't think it has ever been within your authority. It has never been interpreted to be within your authority to say that you have the discretion to determine the direction of travel for bikes in the city or where bike lanes are.
And I'm not trying to say that we have any authority over where they go. It just seems like there was a shift of direction of travel of a street and the traffic that is using the street, which if we talk about, it's pedestrians, motorists, and others. So it seems like it's pretty clearly, and others would probably include that. So then it did adjust, was never brought before us. So the next question that I do have is then, this was approved at some point, and the layout of the street was approved at some point. Are we going back to look at the rest of what we envisioned in Connect Downtown if matches what we've approved in the past or thought of?
The only thing Commission Kornutek, the thing that I want to do is work with our development review staff and just make sure we know all of these projects that are out there and make sure that they are, in compliance with the plan as they come through the process. We're trying to do our best. I work very closely with Andrew, Amy, and our planning staff, and that's my commitment to you all, is to make sure the projects comply with the plan. This one is just asking for approval to move that loading zone from the east side to the west side. And obviously, we're going to put the signage back for the existing parking on the east side.
Commissioner?
Yeah, so this private street that we have here, who does this, can they not use that street? Is that not a part of their?
Are you asking if they can use
are they
the exchange
of
lane?
that area? Can they use that street? Why wouldn't they be able to just load and unload on that street?
I would have to double check that to see what the zoning code says about them using that private street for that purpose, or maybe Andrew knows about that.
That is definitely a private street, and that would not be open to, to deliveries to businesses on the east side of Ninth Avenue, nor would it be open to use for passenger drop-off unless the property owners would allow that.
Okay, one more question.
Thank you, Chair. So speaking again of that Exchange Street, if that is going to be used for vehicular traffic or even for pedestrians, I would encourage that there is some appropriate signage when the cars or the pedestrians get to Ninth, because it is a one-way street, as indicated, due to large trucks blocking sightlines potentially. And Mr. Schultz, I have another question for you. You mentioned that the relocation of the loading zone to the west side was in part intended to serve the entire block, including the west view. Is that a condominium building? A residential building?
I believe it's a residential building. I don't know if it's condo minimized. It is a condo.
Okay. And if there's a loading zone on the west side of the street to accommodate residents on the east side of the street, then they would be crossing into traffic, correct?
Somebody could be over there in the loading zone and walk across that street. That's true.
Okay.
Yes.
So then what is the rationale to maybe not keep the loading zone where it is and potentially add this one? But why would we remove a loading zone that accommodates a residential building and ask residents to cross into traffic?
I think, yes, could somebody use it over there in that area for loading? Yes, they could. I believe, though, primarily what it's going to be used for is the businesses over on the east side of the street. They have it's a very narrow street, hard to fit everything in there that we did to put it back to what it was before. So it presents that lane on the east side. We couldn't keep the loading zone there, but it'd been nice to if it was wider. So we're just moving it over to the west side of the street. It makes sense for the engineers designing that
Could it be
center
just
stripe line.
passenger loading and unloading?
At night and after 4 p.m., I'd like to see it used as passenger drop-off
No,
or
I'm talking
rideshare.
about the east side.
You shouldn't stop,
it's
you
only
shouldn't
gonna
be
be one or
stopping
two.
in the lane and blocking the lane, no.
But I thought, in place of where the parking spaces are. Did I hear that there's
I'm-
going to be
I'm
only one or two parking
confused.
places there?
Yeah, the one on the east is a 2-hour time limit up there. The one on the east side. I wish I had a little laser pointer.
So where it says existing parking lane, that's 2-hour parking.
Yes,
So the loading zone for the entire block is on the west side where it's yellow.
yes.
And so you're moving the old loading zone north on the east side.
From the east to the west, it's,
Yeah, east to the west.
So like large vehicles that are bringing in equipment to the Pinnacle for a concert would be loading and unloading.
they could use it. The other buildings to the east could use it because they're not going to have any loading zones out
But
on.
this would be the only loading, unloading?
No,
for
The loading
Pinnacle?
zone is from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m., 7 days a week.
Right.
So if there's concerts, they would have to get everything loaded by 4 p.m.
And get out of there.
And there are other loading zones available for Nashville Yards
Yes,
underneath it.
they do have them.
But that's for
But
Nashville
there's-
Yards.
It has loading docks.
That's for Nashville Yards only.
But there's nothing for all those properties to the east other than that loading zone, and we need that loading zone.
I was just trying to clarify for
Right.
the Pinnacle, there are available loading
Right.
zones. Approve this or not, they could do that, but we are trying to encourage loading for the entire street available, including the Pinnacle.
The loading, unloading for the Emery is on Commerce, though, not on Church.
I'd have to go up and look and see where you're talking about. I'm sure there is up there. This is really going to help. It's going to help that block from 9th over to Rosa, from Commerce to Church,
Go
to
ahead.
have a loading area.
I think I'd like to see a deferral on this, just kind of throwing that out there, so we can get some understanding of what the loading zone what's going on over there, what is private, what's not private, and I didn't even think about the loading dock. Does the loading dock, will that be able to be used? All of the questions that are kind of up in the air. But yeah, just throwing that out there. It's not really a motion.
Any other questions? We have a motion.
Motion to defer 30 days?
And within those, when it comes back in 30 days, we're looking to better understand, just for clarity.
Yeah, definitely want to understand just the loading zones in the area and just the capacity for people moving.
So you
That's
just,
a terrible motion.
if I could just, Chair, if
Yeah.
I could get clarity for the commissioner's request. So you want, where do you want the analysis of where the other loading zones are? One block around it
Or just
or just for the yards?
just for the yards, or I mean, I guess pertinent to this, like, why does this one make more sense than the dock that they have there or where it currently is? So just on that street and in the yards.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's been deferred for 30 days. Item 6.1, authorization for new always stop for Jacksonia Drive and Bonner Creek Drive requested by Councilmember Huffman. Mr. Smith, would you provide context on this item, please?
Thank you, Chair Mason. This is an intersection that has, it's been brought to our attention from the district council member. We did a warrant analysis to determine whether or not an all-way stop would be appropriate at this location. We looked at the approved policy on establishing multi-way stop control. And we found that this does not satisfy MUTCD warrants. I've included the actual data from the warrant analysis in the staff report. And there's really not a, I'd like to highlight really, if you advance to the next slide, there you go. This intersection does not have sight distance issues. The crash history is shown there over the past 3 years. We've seen 2 angled crashes, and the crash warrants that are part of that warrant analysis say that if we have more than 5 in a 12-month period, then it meets warrants for crash history. If it meets volume analysis, and we did do that, it does, and it does not. And there's also a provision where it meets 80% of the crash warrant and 80% of the volume analysis, then it can meet warrants under warrant D. It doesn't meet that either. And there's some other conditions where you can look at, is there a need to establish, some, where there's conflicting traffic where you can't see, and that simply doesn't exist at this location. So based on all of the evidence that we have, this just absolutely doesn't meet MUTC warrants for all-way stop control. Now, we've heard some, feedback about, well, there's a problem with speeding in the neighborhood. It's like, well, we can address that as part of traffic calming. But as far as traffic control goes, an all-way stop is the wrong tool for what we're trying to accomplish in having some lower neighborhood speeds.
Thank you. And just to reiterate on the council member's comment, it sounded like if it didn't warrant an all-way stop, he was open to some sort of traffic calming or alternate measures to accommodate pedestrian safety concerns in this area.
We have looked at some preliminary designs for a traffic circle, and we've been asked to hold off on that until this appeal for an all-way stop can be heard before the commission.
And then clarity from legal and Mr. Smith, what is the process if this item is approved to get something back on the agenda? Is it better to defer it to come up with alternate measures, or, what is the procedures there?
The request is for an all-way stop. I mean, we can bring it back to another commission date, but, unless something, unless the data change in that short amount of time, it's just not ready for an all-way stop. There are other things that we can do to calm traffic along this corridor, but an unwarranted all-way stop is not something that.
So it could be deferred, giving you all the opportunity to find alternate options.
I would recommend, to uphold the recommendation to not put in an all-way stop there and let us go back and address this with traffic calming.
Gotcha.
Traffic calming doesn't require traffic and parking authorization.
I think my point is that we just don't need to let it die if that happens. Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Cornington.
Our multi-way stop warrant is based on the 2009 MUTCD?
It's based on the current edition of the MUTCD, which is a little bit newer than 2009.
That just came out, right? 2023?
Yes, it's very recent. Came out in I believe December of 2023.
Okay. So within the 2023 version, there is the available, it's section 2B.15, to allow a transition to a yield control at a circular intersection.
This
It's
is not a circular intersection as it is currently configured.
But one of the things that you've been working with the council member on is that as an option, correct? It was installed before and then we removed it?
I'm not aware of something that was installed there.
That was an alternate location, I believe he mentioned. You talking about what he talked about earlier?
Yeah.
I thought I heard it was there.
I think Councilmember Huffman said it had been installed, but there were issues. However, the staff analysis says that it was paused before installation.
Just
Not clear.
finish your comment, Commissioner, before I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I think, if that is something that was being worked on, something was either designed or installed, I think it was more of a tactical urbanism type thing where it's just some sticks in the road and not necessarily one of the nicer ones that is around in that area. I think to go into the park there's a nice concrete one with trees and everybody wants that. And so my thought process was, if the MUTCD allows for temporary stop signs while we work towards that, that might be something that maybe we could propose to then kind of have the stop signs available as we find the design for a circle here that would then alleviate the issues as well. I'll hand it off.
Question.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Smith, so the traffic circle was warranted, is that correct?
We don't do a warrant analysis like this for a traffic circle, so I don't think your question is applicable.
I think the question is, did you all evaluate or review the option for a circular traffic calming? But what you all investigated was a warrants just for all-way stops only.
That is germane to this request for
and
an all-way stop. If this is upheld, we can look at other traffic calming measures that may or may not include a traffic circle or flexible delineators or other alternative signage that's not a permanently installed all-way stop.
So for a point of clarification, this agenda item, the recommendation or the request from the council member was for all-way stops.
That's correct. That's
They
the
reviewed the warrants for an all-way stops, and it doesn't warrant an all-way stops. If we uphold this recommendation to not put 4 stop signs there, then the next step is for you all to work to review alternate options, including a circular traffic calming.
That is correct.
Okay, just a point of clarification. Next question.
One quick question relative to pursuant to the four-way stop. I noticed in one of the photographs, and I think Councilmember Hoffman mentioned the school nearby, and there is a school bus. is the school bus servicing any of the residential homes that are on that street?
I'm sure that a school bus could serve any of them. I'm not aware of which ones would be served
Okay.
at this moment.
And could that be one of the reasons as well? I believe that Councilmember Huffman was suggesting the traffic calming.
Yeah, there's really not, there's not a school bus warrant. That's, a school bus, these are other, reasons, for traffic calming, I suppose, but a school bus, the presence of a school bus or absence of a school bus doesn't help something meet traffic warrants.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gibbs?
What was the rationale for the request for the four-way stop in the first place, one? And my second question is, what is the difference in cost? Doesn't need to be down to the dollar, but the difference in cost between a four-way stop versus a roundabout?
As far as the genesis for an evaluation for an all-way stop, we get hub requests. And I don't recall whether this one was a hub request or simply was an email. I think this probably started with the email, then it gets entered into Hub Nashville, and then we go from there. I'm sorry, no, what's the other part of your question?
I'll go back to the first part again. So in the request that was made, were they specifying this is why we feel there needs to be a four-way stop at this location?
In the correspondence that I've seen, complaints about traffic speeding. I've seen, I don't remember whether I've seen an email on this particular intersection, but usually I will see a hub request saying, we need a four-way stop at this location. There's been a whole lot of crashes right there. And with that, that's enough to go, okay, well, let's find out. Let's look at the problem. Let's get objective data. Let's look at the recorded crash history. Let's put some tubes out and get a speed study going so that we know how fast traffic is going through there. We know how many vehicles are going through there. That was part of the volume analysis that we did, because if this intersection is extremely busy, and you'll know it, then you can meet warrants for traffic volumes. And this commission has approved other locations because it meets warrants for volumes. But for this particular intersection, the data just don't support it.
Okay. My second question was the cost relative to a four-way stop versus a roundabout.
If I understand, you're asking about the cost of a four-way stop versus traffic calming versus a little traffic circle.
Yes.
I would have to delve into that. That's a good question, and I don't have cost figures. That's
Captain Proctor?
Yeah, kind of on the same lines. What is the harm presenting a four-way in that area? What does it present, and kind of to the same cost analysis?
an unwarranted all-way stop will actually increase crashes instead of decreasing crashes. An unwarranted all-way stop will present itself to motorists as, why am I stopping here? There's no traffic here. There's no sight distance issues, and it will encourage people to roll through stop signs. And the MUTCD specifically says that you do not install an all-way stop for the purposes of traffic calming.
Yes, sir.
So if I made a motion to approve a temporary four-way stop while the traffic circle is being installed, and then a traffic circle does not actually get approved, because we do have, a traffic circle design has been prepared for this intersection, but it's been paused. If it remains paused or is killed and within that motion, would that then nullify it, so then they could continue to work on it afterwards?
I'm sorry, I understood you to say a temporary all-way stop. Is that
based on the new MUTCD, says that we can have a temporary four-way stop while we are waiting on a yield for a circle.
Okay.
Could you all jump in here? Because I think there's a couple of stages. One, the traffic and parking, or what is our parameters around directing as far
We're
as
just approving a four-way stop.
well, it says, NDOT is specifically saying that it does not warrant or meet. So then we're going against the engineers and the subject matter experts, and then we are directing them to put in something where they have said it doesn't warrant, whether it be temporary or permanent. And I just want clarity around the risk and exposures on the commission for that.
All right, so I, a while ago, drafted a memo that I will read to you, and since we have some new commissioners, maybe this will be good, about the role of engineering expertise in decision-making to prevent arbitrary or capricious actions. So the integrity of administrative decision-making hinges on ensuring that decisions are rational, well-reasoned, and grounded in expertise. Under principles of due process, decisions must not be arbitrary or capricious. This memorandum outlines how the appropriate use of engineering expertise in decision-making strengthens the Commission's actions against legal challenges and enhances public trust. An affected party may challenge a board or commission's decision by filing a writ of certiorari for review in Chancery or Circuit Court. In Harding Academy versus the Metropolitan Government, the Tennessee Supreme Court explained that the judicial review available under a common law writ of certiorari is limited to determining whether the entity whose decision is being reviewed, one, exceeded its jurisdiction, two, followed an unlawful procedure, three, acted illegally, arbitrarily, or fraudulently, or four, acted without material evidence to support its decision. An arbitrary or capricious decision is one that is not based on any course of reasoning or exercise of judgment, or one that disregards the facts or circumstances of the case without some basis that would lead a reasonable person to reach the same conclusion. Therefore, when making decisions, a board or commission should articulate specific facts and reasons for its decision that are based on the facts and law before them. For example, they should articulate the criteria and the guidelines or law at issue and apply them to the facts presented. Courts are likely to uphold a decision that is based on criteria and the guidelines, past application under similar facts, and traffic studies or detailed observations for a certain location. Courts are unlikely to uphold the decision that is based on the generalized fear of neighbors, e.g. concerns about traffic that are unsupported by traffic evidence, complaints that are speculative or not specific to the situation presented, e.g. they may be noisy, or reasons outside the guidelines or law being applied, e.g. adding a factor that is not listed in the law. The Traffic and Parking Commission relies on its staff traffic engineers for expert opinions, ensuring decisions are based on sound reasoning and factual analysis. These expert insights provide the necessary foundation for informed, legally defensible decisions, reducing the risk of arbitrary, capricious action, promote public confidence, and minimize legal challenges. The guidance presented by the staff engineers to the Traffic and Parking Commission provide the Commission with evidence necessary to avoid making a decision that is arbitrary and capricious. Decisions based on general concerns about traffic, but unsupported by a traffic engineer's expertise, are unlikely to be upheld by a court.
I'd also like to remind the commission too that outside of temporary traffic control for a work zone, we don't install temporary stop signs. And that would also be true in this location.
It's in the MUTCD.
We do not install temporary stop signs.
Captain Proctor?
Yeah, based on legal's motion, what I've heard from Andrew, I'll make the motion that we deny Councilman Huffman's request for the always stop there at that intersection based on, like I said, NDOT's recommendation and Mr. Smith's explanation, as well as legal's, but also with the strong recommendation they continue to work with Councilman Huffman on other measures for that intersection.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been first and second. Questions or clarity on the motion? Do we need to add a timeline or an update at which we would like to see status on the conversation with Councilmember Huffman on alternate measures?
I'm informed that that's in an ongoing process.
60 days, 30 days,
We'll bring it back in 60 days.
60 days. Can we add that to the motion for the record? Any other questions on the motion? Yes.
If we deny this, it can't come back as a stop sign for 6 months?
It could come back as a new request. I have to look at the bylaws for the commission, but Metro Legal may weigh in on that, but it would still need to meet MUTC warrants to be an always stop.
Council, or Commissioner, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a quick clarification in support of the motion that has been presented. Mr. Smith, you indicated that the origination of this request, you believe, started with a hub recommendation. As you come back to...
Yes, ma'am, if I may interrupt. That's usually, it becomes a hub request when I get it and my staff gets it. It may have been, this one was council member's request that was sent over to NDOT. NDOT enters that on behalf of the council member, but that's the process that we're following.
Sure. When you all come back to us, if you could inform us more about the community engagement that was done in the process on whatever the next recommendation may be.
We'll be happy to.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So I guess my clarification on my request. So if it's an appeal, it can't come back before 6 months, but this is not an appeal because this is being brought to us directly as the first item that we're hearing. So theoretically, the council member, if he is not happy with this decision, could still appeal it.
Or the general public could, I mean. But it sounded like he was working with you all to figure something out. Anyway.
I think the next step would be that if the commission denies the request, he would have to bring it to the Chancery Court, I think. Because I don't think the appeal would come back to the body that made the decision.
So if we can't, can we?
But I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
but I also think you could put it on the agenda again.
I mean, we normally get these as appeals, right? And this isn't an appeal.
This was a request from the council member to look at an intersection that they have actively looked at. He asked to look for an always stop. It didn't warrant an always stop. So there's continuing conversations around alternate ways.
But so the motion that we're voting on is not an appeal of the decision of NDOT. It is the four-way stop.
The motion was to uphold the recommendation to not install stop signs. But
The item is
Chair
the stop
Mason,
sign.
if I may, the request came in from the council member for an always stop. NDOT did the evaluation, determined that it doesn't meet warrants, we're not going to install it, and then he's appealing that to this commission. And here we are.
So the item on the agenda is authorization for new always stop for Jacksonian Drive and Bonnet Creek Drive, requested by Councilmember Huffman. It is not an appeal of the decision of NDOT. So this is not properly noticed to be able to vote on today if it is an appeal.
I don't know where appeal came
I don't
from.
think it's an appeal.
Yeah, it's not an
Council
appeal.
members of the public can bring items to NDOT, and NDOT decides we'll place this on the agenda in consultation with the chair. And then they brought this item to you to hear. The council member would like a four-way stop. NDOT's recommendation is deny that request. It's not warranted. You're voting on whether to approve the council member's request for a four-way stop or deny the council member's request for a four-way stop. That's it. It's not an appeal of anything that NDOT has done. It's a new request.
And so the motion on the floor is to deny the request of the council member. So if you vote yes, you are denying the stop sign. If you vote no, you're leaving it open.
That's one way to put it. I see it as if we vote yes, we're supporting NDOT's suggestion that the always stop is not warranted.
Correct.
Whoever made the request. our purpose as a commission is to utilize NDOT as the subject matter experts and engineers around the requests that they get to give us recommendations on what they feel is best for that item. And NDOT has recommended, based on this agenda item, that it warrants an always stop based on, or does not warrant an always stop based on all the information and data and exploration and MUCDD that they went through, and I trust that. So the yes is, yes, we support NDOT in their recommendation that it does not meet MUTCD warrants for always stops.
Yeah, and I was just trying to clarify because the motion is to deny the authorization of the stop. So we are.
I think it's a difference in perspective here, if I may. The motion, as per Captain Proctor, is to support and uphold the recommendation from NDOT.
Correct. And the way it's written is authorization for a new always stop for Jacksonian Drive and Bonner Creek Drive requested by Hoffman be denied, and support the recommendations of NDOT.
Commissioner.
So just to clarify one more time, a vote of yes is to support the NDOT's recommendation.
Yes. Any other questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
It has passed. Thank you. Item 6.2, approval of on-street space rental policy requested by NDOT. Emmy?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Emmanuel Matias. I'm with NDOT. Last month, I have brought to your attention a policy that would provide some options for rental of the curb space. And for the new commissioners, I can just provide a quick summary. We used to have a policy back in the day that was referred to as the bag meter policy, because in the past the meters were bagged. There were certain rates adjusted to it, and so we've increased the rates last year. But in that approval, the only thing that was really changing was the rate structure. This policy is bringing a little more options for businesses to utilize. And so option number one is a standard meter space rental that it occurs now, which means that the public is able to rent out parking spaces with a fee. And the second one is, and the third one are really the new ones. And those would be to allow metered spaces to be utilized as valet for valet purposes up to 7 days. And then also unmetered space rental, which would utilize curb space that is not metered for purposes of either being a temporary loading zone or a temporary valet. Last month, there was one suggestion to add a cool-off period for the loading zone for the loading zone utilization. And so that has been added. You can see it in red. And so all that means is that there needs to be some kind of a period of unused before the request can come again for the same space. And that also applies to the valley section.
Thank you. Is that it? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're good.
Thank you. Questions from commissioners? Yes.
Thank you. Since I'm new, I'm just going to ask a couple clarifying questions, if I may. Is there a threshold or a cap for the number that would be awarded at any one time? And I did not see, although it may be here, a defined area that this policy pertains to.
Okay, so both questions I think answer confidently in that usually it's 2 spaces. So the valet requires 2 spaces as a minimum by code, and loading zones outside of the ones that were approved back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, used to be like four spaces, are usually 2 spaces as well. But that would be based on also auto utilization of the curb and whether other spaces are rented or utilized heavily or based on business needs, based on all the events, based on all the other factors. So they do go through an approval process from our end. I think the baseline is 2 spaces.
My question, just to clarify, was at any one time in a defined area, so if we're talking about, let's just say downtown.
Yes.
At any one time, how many, are there guidelines or thresholds for how many could be rented at
Gotcha.
any given time? Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. We don't have it outlined in that sense, but since we are the ones approving, if we would see that there's abuse on the curbside, either or on the street where it would become a hindrance for public to park, then a request such as this one would not get approved.
Okay, and then the locations or the area?
The
What
location-
defined area are we talking about? for
The
this
locations are always either paid parking for option number 2, and then option number 3 would require a lane closure permit, which would go to the permit office, and that within that section that they get a permit for, they would be able to utilize the parking spaces.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was referring to, is this countywide or downtown, midtown?
Davidson County.
Countywide, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And part of the basis for my question in terms of how many would be afforded or awarded at any given time, in certain neighborhoods, of recent, there could be 10 cones blocking off what would otherwise be street parking. It seems to be a lot, given the ratio of those that are available. So that was the basis for my question, is what guardrails or qualifications criteria are you using for the volume of spaces?
Yeah, I think I understand the question, but I don't think all of those cones that you see on the road pertain to something like this. It might be, a plethora of different permits that they might have received. From our perspective, for the paid parking rentals, usually they occur in downtown area or sometime in midtown. Doesn't really cater to residential areas too much.
Well, the area I'm referring to is where tour buses were parked. It is a mixed-use neighborhood, but it's also highly residential.
Understood, yeah. Yeah, so that sounds like that might be us if it's tour buses.
It was.
It's either going to be that, or then they would need to go to a private property if there's one around. But, if you have spaces available, they're not rented. And it's usually even with buses, they usually park for up to 8 or 12 hours, not the full day. In business hours from 8 to 5. We don't usually see a problem with them parking there because usually anybody else would be parking there, would pay for parking. So again, we put some criteria in place when it comes to approvals, and if there's an abuse, we don't approve them.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Commissioner Gibbs?
2, one, the fee structure that's involved here, is that enough to cover the actual costs incurred by NDOT?
It's a complicated question. We approved the new rates last year. With the phase 2 that is going live now, we are going to be revising the curb space pricing, but that will be coming later this year, just because of the fact that last year the curb space was at a different rate than it is this year due to the new update of the pricing. So to answer your question, as of next week, probably not, but we will work on adjusting the rates again higher so that it can accommodate and make sure that the costs are covered.
Okay, I just don't want to see the city losing money
100%.
in a process like this. My second question is, if a business does something like this, rather than having NDOT come out and put out their cones, can the business put out their own cones with signage from NDOT saying that this has been designated for whatever?
We've had those conversations before, and we diverted back to us doing it just due to the fact that opens the door for abuse. This way, we are the ones who put the cones out. We know exactly how many cones they got out, how many spaces they reserved, how many spaces they paid for. And we are also the ones that purchased the cones. So I think if you were to give if you were to give the ability for somebody else to put the cones out, I'm just afraid that they would try to abuse it. Sometimes when we're not on the street or overnight or, at any other circumstance that they would require spaces for themselves for whatever reason. And that's also part of the reasoning why point 3 exists, to where if there's an unmetered space that we usually don't enforce for paid parking, that there's also some type of control so that people don't just put cones out there and we can at least control what they do.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner.
I was going to ask it on another one, but I'll put it out there now. In the past, y'all had a dashboard of metered parking and the fees that we were collecting.
Yes.
Could we get that at some sort of standard time frame or potentially put it online?
Yes, I would recommend, if I might, I would recommend to wait a few months because of the phase 2. I think there's going to be a good comparison between, like for example, the hours of purchase now versus the, up to 10 hours. It's going to show us exactly what the amount of time people are utilizing at the curb.
Great. I just would love to see it again.
Yes, sir.
And then also to Commissioner Gibbs' point of maybe with requests that require time for these policies, maybe that could be something that could also be added. Doesn't necessarily have to have a financial value to it, but just the number of them within that would be good.
I'm sorry, would you be so kind and revise your question or a comment?
This is taking away parking for a certain number of days or time frame. Maybe that could also be acknowledged in sort of what we can see. So that way
Understood.
it is available for everybody to have that ability.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Another clarification, please.
Yes, ma'am.
The provision reads that it will pertain to vehicles. Is there a definition of how NDOT is defining a vehicle? Is that a potential tour bus?
Very good question. Again, anything that is motorized, it would be a coach bus, it would be a vehicle, it could be a cargo truck, potentially a motorcycle, although that doesn't happen. So anything that is used for transportation could be understood as a vehicle.
Okay. I would offer some suggestions that the size of the vehicle is considered, particularly in cases I've seen this done, where it's on narrow streets. Sight lines are blocked for drivers and pedestrians, and it's almost impossible to maneuver through the area when these are used for tour buses.
Understood.
Like 8 spaces in a row for tour buses.
Understood. We have one person that this channels through on our end and NDOT, so I'll make sure that we put these guidelines in there as something that we can look at moving forward.
Thank you.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the on-street space rental policy.
Do we have a second? Second. Been first and second, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. Item 6.3, approval of parking fee waiver for Tour de Nash event requested by NDOT. Is there any context or things you want to?
I created a quick summary. I can read it out if you'd like.
Sure.
So NDOT is proud to be a sponsor to the 21st Annual Tour de Nash as part of the Walk Bike Nashville initiative starting May 17th. This will be a casual and fun opportunity to explore the city's bikeways, neighborhoods, and greenways with the whole community of friendly bicycle riders. These will be beginner-friendly rides for our residents and their families, as well as our guests to the city, experiencing either a 5-mile comfortable city tour ride or a more of an intense experience of up to 45 miles all throughout our neighborhood. This initiative will provide an experience for all ages, including children, and as part of the car-free route with fully closed streets in greenway segments. This applies to the 5-mile tour. NDOT is in support of the bikers and this initiative and requests to waive the metered parking fees associated with this initiative on May 17th for potential loss of revenue in value of $1,877 from approximately 190 spaces along its route.
Questions? Yes, sir.
And just for some of our newer members too, but the only reason that this has to come before us today is because it's outside of our standard policy where we have yearly events that you all can just approve at your discretion.
Yes, sir.
And so this is a new one. It could become a yearly
Next-
event.
correct.
And we wouldn't have to hear it next year.
Correct.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
No, hey, I just want to, I think these are great events, kind of gets a different crowd into Nashville, so I appreciate it, and I'll make the motion to approve this request.
Second.
Been first and second, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's passed.
On
Thank you,
behalf
Yemi.
of NDOT and my little 3-year-old son, I appreciate it. I think I join also, so thank you.
6.4, approval for downtown temporary service business permits for loading and unloading zones requested by NDOT. Mr. Schultz, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I want to first, being handed around to you are some, there was about 7 changes. I've been working with the attorneys on this one. This is the downtown temporary service business permit. I've actually been working with Emmy on it. And what this is really focusing, what happened to my PowerPoint? Did it go away? Maybe she can go back here for a second. Not right. There it is. What this, I got a sensitive PowerPoint there. Hopefully you can see my PowerPoint. And I like long titles. Downtown Temporary Service Business, I call it a DTSB permit, approval and placard issuance process. We have a number of service businesses in the downtown area. This permit really is only for that area from the Connect Downtown boundaries, basically the interstate to the west, north, and south in the Cumberland. So it's basically that entire study area. And what we want to do is we have a lot of service businesses. They can take hours, couple hours to get the service work done. HVAC companies, audio companies. There can be, host, mechanical, electrical, and we want to give them a very simple placard, 1 permit per business. We issue them to the business people in the downtown area. They will get 2 placards. The placard, I just want to show it to you. It's not done yet. I'm working on the placard, but it's going to look something like that. Our sign shop has a whole stack of them, and I grabbed a whole bunch. They're going to be mine to work to get the permits out to these individual businesses. I've worked with lots of stakeholders in the downtown, given presentations on this to everybody downtown. They want it. We want something so when our enforcement staff goes out there, they can quickly and easily look and see it's on the dashboard of the car of the service company, and then they go, okay, you got 2 hours at the curb. Same thing applies like our 30-minute limits now. If you're there over 2 hours, you get a citation, you're asked to move. The program it's $100 for the permit. We give you 2 placards. It will increase their time to 2 hours at the curb. The applicant's got to provide us with who are the service companies that are going to be going there. I want to start creating a list of everybody who is going to and from the businesses because we're going to use it for Smart Loading Zone program as well. There's another permit process with that one. This is intended to be temporary until we can get the Smart Loading program fully up and going in other areas. So if I can go to the next slide there. I've got the button. What am I talking about? So the placards will be watermarked, numbered. So if somebody loses them, they have to pay to get them replaced, and we will get rid of that number. That's something we've worked out in there. That could happen. Service businesses must park vehicles at the extreme ends of the loading zone. So it's only in the loading zone. They got to be at the extreme ends because we want to still get deliveries in there for people. And we also want it, when it's passenger drop-off time in the downtown, we want the passengers to be able to get there at the curb. The permit application can be denied or issued permits revoked, but by the NDOT director or designee, appeals to denied permit applications or permit revocation can be submitted to Traffic and Parking Commission. So you're in the loop on this permit process if there is a need for a revocation. Emmy brought up when we were writing these, well, what happens when somebody, hands it to one of their employees and park in the loading zone? No, that would be a misuse if we catch them. And I've told the businesses downtown, if you do something like that, we're going to notice it. You could potentially lose these privileges to have this placard process. So, and also the one thing that we wanted to stress is all this and the smart loading and all that when it comes, we need the ability for the director to make changes to it. The director now has authority to give more time at the curb. This is kind of our first one to give the service companies. We're stretching out just a little bit, putting our toe in the water to let them go from 30 minutes to 2 hours. I think it's going to be successful just from my conversations with everybody that we've talked to in the downtown. I've gone to the merchants meetings. I'm going with the NDOT leadership to all those. I'm talking about these constantly. So be that as it may, there was about 8 changes to my staff report that you got. I'm sorry, I tried to get it to you Friday. I was unable to. Basically, I had called the attachment 1. It's not. It's a policy, and it's on your standard policy form. You can see it there. The next change was wording may be used instead of our only valid was on that location in downtown DTSP permits. The third one was DTSP permit issuance. Our legal team added permit. An additional wording was specified that service vehicles and repair equipment must be at the ends. I said it one time, but we wanted to add it so when our permit staff is doing this and people are getting them, they know to park. We stressed parking at the ends of the loading zones. We added some words to make sure the validity of it. It's a 1 year. You got to pay $100 and you got to re-up it every year. Again, the intent is not this to be forever, but just to give some help to the service companies out there. You'll see language in there, sole and absolute discretion. That's me trying to be an attorney, and our good attorney said, Brent, you don't need that, and I defer to them. They're right, but I like that terminology, but they said you don't need to use it. I didn't go to legal school. That's why they have them here for me, but I appreciate their help on that. And then appeal process, we added just beefing up. It must be a written appeal when there's denials. And then the last one, DTSP permit process modification, clarifying director or designee may make modifications as necessary and will advise traffic. I plan on coming back to you and letting you know how it's going. What are we seeing? I'm down there all the time now. So we're hoping this is helpful. I want to thank Flinda and Erica. They got a busy schedule, and I jumped in there, and they helped me get this done. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to be real hands-on on all these to make sure not just our merchants are doing it right, but our team and NDOT's issuing the permits right. And NDOT's recommending that the Traffic and Parking Commission approve the Downtown Temporary Service Business Permit Program procedures under its authority under Metro Code 1248-010. And I'm here to answer any questions you have. And I don't know if Flinda or Erica, you want to add anything that maybe I missed?
We don't have anything to add unless the commission has questions for us.
Captain Proctor.
Thank you, Bruce. So on this, it doesn't really talk about the enforcement side of these permits and who would be required to do the enforcement, how that would look. My concern is that we do have central officers down in that downtown corridor and that they're going to be approached by these business owners on different restriction violations and people trying to get people to move so they can get their loading people in there. So can you speak on that, please?
On the enforcement side, I'm going to continue to go out with Diana and our other NDOT leaderships and I've gone to your PD meetings. I'm going to continue to go to those to brief everybody on what's happening when we add stuff on here. But NDOT enforcement will, I think, be the primary people in helping enforce this program. But I plan on after this, if it's approved, it's that education outreach piece for April, May, and June. I'm going to go out and hit again, every downtown merchant, the business owners that want to come in on this and make sure they understand the parameters of the program, including the PD that's down there. And I talk to this field staff that are out there and tell them what's coming and what we're doing.
And then this question will be for legal as well. So looking from a PD stance, do you are seeing any issues or any conflicts with PD being down there and any conflicts with that part?
I don't necessarily see any conflicts. I believe it would be the NDOT officers down there enforcing these permits as they do with the other, transportation licensing division rules and regulations, as well as some of these traffic and parking. Also, the Metro Code under the curb management section 1248.025 allows NDOT to submit rules for the program to the Traffic and Parking Commission to providing for enhanced enforcement, to provide dedicated enforcement personnel. If you are concerned about MNPD's role here, I would suggest that you talk with NDOT so that we can work on any confusion that might arise. I think this would be an NDOT enforcement policy. I don't think this would be MNPD.
Correct. And I think Bruce kind of explained it. I think or Brent, excuse me. I think he kind of explained it. I think this would be a thing that they would have to enforce. But obviously, I think the most visible person down there is going to be the police, and they're going to latch on to us for trying that. So that's kind of why I have those clarifying questions, and appreciate y'all looking for those educational opportunities there as well. Thank you.
To that point, just like the captain said, when a business owner comes out and he wants to complain, he's not going to know to call NDOT. He's going to know to call the police. So one question in that is, there's a 2-hour window. How do you affirm that 2 hours have passed?
If you don't mind, I can speak to Emmanuel Matias NDOT. Piggyback to that question, I can answer yours as well. So everybody else who does not have the permit still complies with the current time limits, which is 30 minutes in the loading zone. So that would answer one of your questions as to, how would we know who was there? We time these also. We have cameras in the vehicles that are able to timestamp the session. So our enforcement officer would go around, scan a license plate, timer begins, go back half an hour later, and then, or go back later and it will show up the elapsed time. So anything over half an hour would be enforced, and that would kind of help clear up the curb.
And the same thing would happen for the 2-hour time period?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, other question, can the police write this type of a ticket?
I've seen them enforce loading zones. That's more of a question for PD, but I've seen them enforce violations. I'm not sure if they're enforcing parking violations, because that's our forte, but anything else would be PD.
And that would, like I said, back to Metro Legal, but my understanding, probably with this permit process, I don't think that we would be the enforcing, since we're not the issuing agency.
I would agree with that, and also NDOT is over parking violations, and this would be essentially a parking violation, not a moving violation. MNPD enforces the moving violations.
And with that, I know we do some parking violations as well, so that's why I want to make sure the clarification with this different permitting process. Once again, NDOT being part of the Metro government, we are part of that same umbrella. I think that's where some clarity I would like to have a little bit on that part.
If I might just add on a point, anything that relates to the 2 hours and half an hour, it will always be us enforcing, because we have the technology to timestamp. Initially, I misspoke. I was referring to enforcement within the loading zone, but anything that is time-related, that's always going to be NDOT, since it would be a parking violation. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Kornichek.
So just to clarify, it would be the business owners, they are at a property within the downtown, connected downtown boundary. They apply for the permit. The intent would be you have somebody coming to do this work. They go into the loading zone. Normally they have a half hour to do their thing, but they walk over to the business, they get the placard, and then go back and put it in their vehicle?
Yes, Commissioner, yes.
So that, like, the service vehicles would not have these for themselves.
Correct. It would be issued directly to the merchant, and they're responsible to maintain them. They like this idea, this approach, but they're responsible for those, to keep those up. We'll have them all numbered, stamped. I want to watermark them with our sign shops as they can do that, so they're special. They're just ours. They have them. That's the plan.
Yeah, I mean, I do share some level of this. It seems like a great idea. I know it's in Connect Downtown as an opportunity, handing things out to people, and, you know, there's a really easy way to start abusing it. You know, I can walk downtown and see there's a couple of signs out there that say this parking is only for this business, which is not real. But trying to find ways to enforce that. So just keeping an eye on that. One other clarifying question within this. The study area boundary that is presented to us, it's pink, but the Connect Downtown study area is generally thought of across the river too, and into the Gulch and Sobro.
Right.
Yes. I'm sorry, Commissioner, that I've got to get a better image. That color slurped up there. It should be, basically, it's everything from in the Connect Downtown boundaries. Obviously, there's no development in the east of the Cumberland. So it's primarily, we're only going to be issuing them inside the interstate, within the Connect Downtown boundaries from the Cumberland over to the interstate, to the west, and the north, and the south. So I decided to start with that as a boundary.
I guess I'm still a little unclear. So even,
It looks like that pink got shifted.
Yeah, the pink got
PDF
shifted.
Accidentally, you just slide it down, it stays within the dotted lines.
Yeah, that color should be, I'll get another one made to shift it down.
could we just say it's the Connect Downtown study area, so that way it encompasses everything? Because this is not clear.
It is, it's in the policy that I worked on with them. I think it's pretty clear. It is within the boundaries of Connect Downtown. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Commissioner, if you look at the policy itself, under purpose, it states, new downtown service business permit procedure to increase time for businesses to provide services in the Connect Downtown Action Plan project boundaries.
Should we make a motion then to just delete that?
You can, sure. Or to revise it so that it's more clear.
Okay, so potential add would just be to revise to have a clearer map of the Connect Downtown study area.
Yes.
Does that? Well, I'm curious if the concern here is the East Bank and River North and Sobro, if they are all three of those part of what you intend to roll this out in?
No, we really intend to do that area from the Cumberland to the west, interstate to the south, and then interstate to the north. Because that's where all of this servicing is going on right now. That's where we need to provide space in the loading zone for the service companies to get out there and do their work. I imagine, maybe there could be somebody coming over from the East Bank, but I doubt it. It's usually, I don't think we have any loading zones over there, but yet.
Yeah.
But this is, again, a temporary program to just get out and start helping some of these service companies that are having difficulties because they take an hour or two to get work done in the loading zone.
How long is this policy, this temporary policy?
Right now, I want to do it for a year or two and just to get some help to the service companies. And then we could, if we decide it's going so great, we could bring it back and make it something longer, but.
Can we set a time limit to within the first phase of Connect Downtown and then?
Or I could bring it back to you, regularly to tell you how it's coming, and after a year, come back and give you an update on it and tell you, should we, what do we think? Should it keep going?
I know that you will. I just know that in the past we've had incidences of temporary programs lasting a very long time. And so maybe it might be a good idea to just time limit this somewhat, so then there's a specific point to come back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was reading here, under the revocation, permit issuance, permit loss, it says after 6 months of time has elapsed, a DTSB permit revocation date, a new DTSB permit may be issued at the discretion of NDOT director designee. So it sounds like these only last for 6 months?
No, I think that's under a revocation language. If we had
Well,
to.
I guess where I was going, can we get an update in 6 months?
Sure, I'd be happy to come back in 6 months and tell you how it's going.
And then the reason why I propose removing the map is, I mean, it references the Connect Downtown Action Plan project boundaries a few times in here. And that allows you all to have discretion as to where you do it within there. You want to expand it to other areas within Connect Downtown, that way it's applicable, and, up to you all, but.
That's a good idea, Chair, because this is a brand new project. I don't know who's going to come in. I just know they're all telling me we need some help, Brent. 30 minutes isn't, we can't do it. We need more time.
I think it'd be better to remove the map than to change the language to just say specified or reference map instead of.
So just reference the Connect Downtown boundaries, and that'll be.
That's and then you have freedom to do it wherever you feel like you need to.
That'd be fine. I'd agree to that.
We can just add that to the motion.
Sure.
Okay.
If the attorneys are okay.
Ms. Holler, you have another?
Yes, just
question?
quickly, Mr. Schultz, and again, since I'm new, sorry, bear with me if you don't mind. I do appreciate the comments on enforcement. I think that's going to be critical, and certainly there's a lot of enforcement that is needed in all areas, not just with this new policy. But I have a couple of questions. It states that there could be 2 placards or permits per business, but only used within the loading, defined loading and unloading zone. So in the case of, I'll just make this up, 5th and Broadway, that has a whole lot of businesses within 5th and Broadway, how will NDOT manage the disbursement or the approval of, if there's this much loading zone and this many businesses asking for permits, how are y'all going to manage that?
We're going to be out there in the field a lot. I'll be working.
Manage the issuance of the permits.
Oh, manage the issuance of the permits. I'm going to reach out to all of the businesses that I know. I have a list of them and let them know it's happening. I'll work with the Nashville Downtown Partnership, Tom Turner and his group over there. Councilmember Coopin's out there. I mean, I'm going to be really jumping on everybody to help get the word out that we can do them. Then I'm going to be working with our permit staff. I'm going to set up a website so people can go there and they can get the applications and get them into us. We have an outreach team, marketing and outreach team. I'll be putting out information there that it's available to everyone. And, it's really it's going to be an enforcement. We're going to have to be out there enforcing it when we issue all these to everybody and making sure that it could be during the loading time when we want to get a lot of deliveries to certain of the loading areas, right? So we want these companies that come in to stay down at the ends of the loading zone area. That's, and that's also the merchants wanted this. They were the ones who told me they needed this, and they thought, yeah, they could, if they go to the ends, that'll give the center areas for the deliveries.
And where are the passenger loading and unloading?
Well, you know what I need to do, Commissioner? I need to do a flexible curb presentation to you, because the downtown, this is going to work in concert as we start implementing flexible curb. What we've done when that Connect Downtown was approved, we flexed the curbs. Like Broadway becomes 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. Take, for example, from 1st to 6th. If you look at that section, 4 a.m. to 4 p.m., it's loading. 4 p.m. to 4 a.m., it goes passenger delivery and drop off. And you'll see a lot of the curbs, and I think I've given presentations to people. I was like, how are they expanding the curbs in downtown? There's no more curbs. Well, you're flexing it. Some of them were never flexed. They were just static. They said just loading. No, we're gonna be changing those signs out over time. Andrew's gonna be working with his team, Emmy, and we're gonna change them out so that I remember when it's gonna expand the uses on the curb.
But specific to this program,
Yes.
once a permit is issued, it's available 24/7?
Yeah, they could go in there, yeah, sometimes services are in there 24/7. They could be there at 2 a.m. in the morning, with an emergency. The HVAC went off, right?
Okay, and then how was the determination made? I heard you say that 30 minutes was too short.
Yes.
Understandably. How did we get to 2 hours?
Talking to them, I talked to all the merchants downtown about it, and we talked internally at NDOT, and I listened to them, and we said, we're going to start with a 2 hour at first and see how it goes. One of the,
You mind telling the story of, like, when they deliver alcohol down on Broadway, Bud Light, for example, they're going to multiple stops.
businesses.
They're not just parking, going to one. So that was one of the,
Okay.
if you could expound on some of those specific
Yeah,
issues,
if you
that'd be
talk
great.
to a lot of these companies, they're hitting multiple locations. They don't just go to one place and deliver it. They'll go down the street and they'll move. And they have to take everything in and deliver it to the refrigerators at every level.
Wouldn't that be against the policy, though?
What's that?
The way that our policy is written is it's a specific business gives the placard for 2 hours.
You're right.
But if they go to another business, then are they out of the policy?
That's a good point.
Yeah, well, it's going to be an enforcement. We're going to have, and there could be issues where we have to adjust it, where,
Are there
Yeah.
opportunities to maybe, there are the merchants that need them, and then there are the service delivery trucks that have issues like that, where they could get a 2 hour placard to then deliver throughout?
No, we're not talking about the delivery companies. This is just for the service companies. I'm only proposing something for the service companies.
Oh, not food and beverage delivery.
This is not for delivery. This is for the electrician that has to go in there. We have a company that's one person that just cleans the tap systems.
Sure.
They have yeast in them. They have to clean them for health department requirements. They need to get in there. Sometimes it breaks and it might take him 2 hours to fix it.
Mr. Schultz, does this apply to residential high-rises or buildings within
It's
the
just
core?
only the service companies in the loading zones. So I don't.
Right, but if there's, let me finish if
Oh,
I
I'm
may.
sorry. Sorry, Commissioner.
If there's an HVAC, MW Mechanical, or ServPro, or any number of these services that are servicing a residential high-rise within the Connect study, are they excluded from this policy?
That was something I will have to look at and see if, when we implement the program, if I'm getting a lot of them and if that's a problem. But we have the ability to do adjustments to it. But it may be something I have to bring back a new change because we see a bunch of people doing that. Primarily.
Is that considered if it's an apartment high-rise or a condominium association, is that determined? I think the word business might need some clarification.
Right now, as I understand the program, and Brent will correct me if I'm wrong, it just applies to local businesses in the area, not residential
Yeah, we
buildings,
didn't.
is that right?
That wasn't the intent.
However, the need is the same.
And you know what? If all of a sudden we start seeing a bunch of people applying for that, I'd stop, work with Erica and Flinda, and we'd look at it and see, is it something we think we need to bring back?
What do you mean, bring back?
Bring it back to you to add it.
Oh, bring back to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bring it back to the commission. I'm not going to propose do anything that's not,
Is there a reason residential buildings were not, businesses were not?
That's not where we're hearing the problems. We're really hearing the problems at the local businesses, the honky tonks, the restaurants in downtown. That's where we're hearing the issues.
This is pure speculation on my part, but it may be that the residents have private parking or private garages that the service trucks may be able to go park in while they're servicing the building, but I think
it depends.
I really don't know. Yeah, it could depend, but I honestly, we haven't discussed the resident or I have not discussed the residences with NDOT.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. I think it would be hard to clarify that an apartment building is not a business. And you're likely, in a lot of them, going to be providing for some of the, if it's a mixed-use apartment building, there's going to be businesses below it.
Absolutely.
So it seems like that might be something we would want to add, just to, if it is only for service-type businesses that we're trying to do this for, then that may be a clarification we need to add versus all businesses. And then the other point that I did want to make, I just pulled up the Downtown Partnership Business Census from 2024, and in a truncated section of the Connect Downtown study area, it's 2,912 employers. So, I mean, it could be a very big program if it is expanded to just employers throughout that area.
If I may oh, sorry, Chair. A term commercial might be a good word to add to the language if we are only going to restrict it to commercial businesses and exclude residential businesses. But I do hear Commissioner's point about many are mixed use.
Yeah, is residential
How do you exclude
term?
one and include the other? 505, Fifth and Broadway. There's a whole lot of them that are mixed use, residential and commercial.
I think, Brent, you're actually doing a great job. I've had several conversations with you, so I'm for this as well. But I'm just going to kind of make the motion this time, not to load up the May agenda, but we push this back to May, maybe get some of that revised language. But this will allow me to also, my internal legal, allow them to look at it from that enforcement side. So I'll make the motion to defer 30 days to the May and put it on the May agenda.
Second.
It's been first and second. Just for clarification on Brent, it says NDOT staff will be reviewing the permit program on a regular basis, both application process and actual field usage by permittees. Some of the things that we brought up here, how easy would it be to update us on successes and or failures around some of the comments made here?
Chair Mason, I think I can come back as often as you want to let you know what's happening on the program. I don't have any problems with that. I want to be transparent about everything we're doing and make sure it works right for the community and you all and your powers and responsibilities. So if you want me to come back monthly, I'll come back monthly and tell you how it's going.
I guess the purpose of, we'd like to get this rolling. Until you start implementing it and using it, we're not going to really know or get any feedback. I would ask Captain Proctor, is it comfortable, if you feel comfortable with approving it with the context around them coming back next month with some adjustments that have been mentioned and an update as to how we're appropriately supporting other industries, coordinating with legal on the MMPD side, so that you can at least start to roll a portion of this out to start testing it.
No, I support it. Like I said, Brent, I love the energy he's bringing to Nashville and what he's trying to do. So I appreciate his efforts, as mentioned. My main goal is, A, to get some clarifying language from the comments that we've heard, but also so I'm not surprising my Metro Police Department legal with this, so they have a heads up about what is occurring down there in that area.
So legal, is it comfortable for us to approve it with the expectation that you all work with NDOT to change and or modify any legal language that's necessary? Or
I don't think you can approve it with the thought that it's going to be amended without your approval. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think you would have to approve any amendments or make motions to amend it now, but
okay.
I think for the most part, we're mostly supportive. It's just some clarity. And it seems like you already have a multi-month education and outreach before it's actually implemented. And so like the main points can still be brought to people to continue getting feedback, to kind of show them what the program is going to be. It just may not start for an extra month. So if we did defer for 30 days, like there's still time to go into the community, still maybe meet this plan. It may push it out an extra 30 days at most, but you know, there's still time for you to get out there and still do your thing, right?
Oh, yes. I mean, I'm excited to get out there and get everybody signed up for the program. They really want it, everybody I've met with. So, and I think Eric is right. If you want to propose an amendment to it, and or if you, I really was wishing you would approve it so I could get moving. But, you know, I respect your opinions on this, commissioners.
Any other questions on the motion or comments?
Just a comment, when you all come back to us, a couple of suggestions, if you could think about and consider, would be the permit, I believe, extends for a period of 1 year. I could foresee that there would be some businesses that might have something going on in their building that is much less than a year, and they may be interested in whether it's a painting project or an HVAC project or something, so perhaps a shorter period of time. And maybe you heard that from some of the merchants. And then my other comment, which is similar to the temporary or the metered parking, is guardrails for the number of these permits that might be issued, recognizing that there will be a removal of available loading zone areas for Ubers and passengers and unloading and so forth. So do you all have a certain threshold, maximum number that you might be considering?
That would be, Commissioner, that'd be almost like impossible to do. If you've I'm sure watched it down there, it is so dynamic. When you go early in the morning, if you should go out with me, it's amazing watching them load at 4 in the morning, and so it's just, they just take control of that street to get stuff done. And then, you know,
Yeah, but would there be a cap? Would there be a cap on the permits?
I wouldn't propose that you do that. Let me get it going, and I will come back to you and let you know what's happening on it. If it's too much, is it overpowering the street, you know, by the issuance of too many permits? I'm just not, maybe that could happen, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think we can control it. I think we can get it moving. I hope you trust me to keep an eye on it and make sure nothing comes off the rails. And while we do it, I know this, they're desperate for it because those businesses, they take a beating and they need those electricians and HVAC. They're not, just so you know, they're not doing tenant improvements with this. This is like truly, plumbing's backed up, the refrigerators have died, the air conditioner just died, and it needs new coils. It's that kind of thing. It's, you know, the stereo system broke, they got to come in there and fix something. This isn't the tenant improvement construction activity. That's not what this is for.
Yes.
If you're in violation of a loading zone, we ticket people. Do we tow them?
Are you towing anybody?
What's the loading zone penalty?
Just to answer your question, we usually don't tow from loading zones. We do cite in the loading zones for parking violations. Yes, sir.
Is it just the standard parking violation fee, or is there a different fee for that?
It's parking in prohibited place. I believe it's $69 or $70.
I guess, I mean, if I'm in an emergency situation and I got to get something fixed, that doesn't seem like a horrendous problem if it's going to stay in the loading zone for 3 hours and they pay
the permit? With the permit?
They get a ticket and they pay that, and the business pays for it because of, just from that example that I heard. If this comes back next month, that's one thing I'd like, is just some more concrete examples to help us see what is going to be used for.
Chair, if I
So-
may correct
yeah.
something I said earlier, I just got some information that most of the residences downtown and the Connect Downtown boundaries have their own loading zones, and so this would be for on-street loading zones. So I think that's where the separation between the merchants and the residences occur. That's all.
So we had a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll see you in 30 days.
So what just happened?
Chair, did everybody vote? I only heard 2 ayes.
Sorry. So,
Can you please retake that vote?
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
just to recap, Captain proposed to defer 30 days. We had a second from Neil. We had questions. I said all in favor say aye.
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 Do we have any nays? It has passed. The deferral has passed, right?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
No problem. Item 6.6, TPAC rideshare updating extension requested by NDOT. Mr. Schultz.
Thank you. This is a little update we want to give you on the rideshare project. Overall, I think Megan Matson, who worked with me, and Shandy, we thought, and working with Jeremy Knutson's here, Director of Event Management for TPAC, we felt like it was a good event and good time. It's a part of the NDOT Special Events Plan of Connect Downtown is to look at ride shares. We've got Fairpoint, actually, when I came on, was working on this one, and then Megan and I took it over to get it going. Megan and Shandy have done a lot of heavy lifting on it. You know, I contacted Uber and Lyft and got them to geofence to these locations. Let's keep going. I get to the map so I can show you here. So we designated those 2 areas established on Dedrick Street, basically 6th to 5th over there. The first zone was for 4 parking spaces, that yellow one, zone 1, and the blue one was 5 spaces. So, parking enforcement put out the cones, and I actually went out there one of the nights to get people to not go to 6th Street and drop off in front of the valet, but hey, we got parking areas over here. And I think what we learned from it all, let me see if I can get to the heat maps. As you recall, the program ran from the 28th to February 23rd, and we had to put the cones out 24 hours before the events. There's the cones we put out. Here's the rideshare app was pretty cool. They could, when you picked it up, it would show you where to get picked up. And let's see, that was theirs. You kind of see the heat map that we got these from. Uber typically doesn't put these out to people, but Ben, we got him to give it to me to show me what's happening. What you see is it wasn't a giant change, but it was significant in that people were starting to move around to those 2 zones. When you look from the 24th to the 25th, and they agreed with that as well. Oh, by the way, both Uber and Lyft liked the program as far as they thought it had merit. And so you can kind of see here's the more on the heat maps from pickups. You can see they're finally starting to go over. You know, when I was there my first night, everybody goes to 6th and they drop off at the valet. We're dropping back off on Union. And we said, no, that's a roadway back there. We've got 2 lanes. You shouldn't be going over there. And it did get a little bit better toward the end of the process so you can see them moving there to the 2 zones. So this just shows the boundary of the rideshare area going around the Tennessee Performing Arts Center. I don't know what's going. And then here's Lyft's. That's how they did their geofencing maps to get people to go to get to their rideshare for them. So general observations, the use of the geofencing dedicated space for the rideshare area we think it can be effective. Enforcement sometimes presents a challenge. Automated parking enforcement will be essential moving forward. And hopefully our smart loading zone program gets going soon in May and June, and then we can get you real-time data from those license plate readers on who's doing what in the downtown. The rideshare zone signage could be improved. I'd like to get some new signage as we continue these in the future. You'll see those white ones. I found those. People were complaining a little bit about they couldn't see them, so I went over and grabbed them from Reggie. Got them for me in the shop, and we fixed them up real quick and put them out there. I think it helped a little bit, but there's some pretty cool rideshare signs that I've seen that are MUTCD approved, and I'd like to get those in the future. Historical rideshare data could help, right size the zones. TPAC specific observations from them were an early education process. They admit it'd be nice to have some more time to get their education and their marketing out there to their patrons. And I've got a proposal for you. Hopefully you'll approve it before we leave. Coning off the spots 24 hours in advance was difficult to maintain. People knock them down and stuff like that. ME's folks in enforcement put them up. And then sometimes, others would put them back. Sometimes I drive by there and put them back. So initial rideshare zone observations, the use of geofencing can be effective. And wait, I just read that one, didn't I? Oh, no, I didn't. Enforcement presents a challenge. Automated parking will be essential to moving forward. Rideshare zone signage could be improved. And historical rideshare could help right size it. The one thing we learned, we got the 4 spaces there and the 5. I think we need to go down to just maybe use 1 or other, but maybe 3. I think they only need about 3 spaces in there to get the Uber and Lyfts in. They would drop them off pretty quick and pick them up pretty quick. So I think that would be, if we go forward, I'd like to have authority for the director to do that and test that out. So what were the successes? Built relationships with rideshare companies. That was great. They're calling me a lot now where we really didn't have a connection with them. Scalability, pilot has the potential, we think, to be replicated in other places, Nissan events, other things like that. Rider compliance, riders generally adhere to the designated zones when I was out there and I saw it. But there's certain things they do that they've been doing over and over and over at TPAC. You can tell the people who are patrons there know how they get in. But they were starting to use your zones that you set up. So there was challenges too. People wouldn't go to the zones, or they'd pull around the corner right in front of the hydrant. We go, no, you can't sit, and they jump out real quick. TPAC and us, there was some handicap folks, and we said, take them to valet, because the 2 zones didn't have handicap areas. We told them just use your valet area to get your handicapped up. So there were some external factors. It was really cold out there when we did it, really cold. I didn't bring my jacket, but it was pretty cold. So, and also the construction on 6th really is making it difficult for them to drop off their customers. So what we're proposing moving forward, TPAC is interested in conducting another pilot. They've got some big shows coming September 1st through the 31st. I'd like authority for the director or designee from you to continue the project through the end of the year. And so we can get more data, from it, and let us use one or both of those areas. I can report back to you regularly on how it's going and how much they're using them. And then I think we could have really more data on what is it doing, and I can get more of those heat maps and information from the rideshare companies to see how we can improve it. Because if you look in the flexible curb plan, there's 15 or so rideshare pickup drop-off areas in the downtown area. And before we go into those, I'd like some more data from this on how to do it. We also would like data from this for all the big events downtown, and maybe we should, where should we put these in other areas to help those events? And so that's our next steps. That's what we'd like to do with you. Jeremy Knutson's here, Director of Event Management. Jeremy, did you have a good time with me out there? Sure you did. You loved it. So anyway, I don't want to hold you all up, but we'd like you to approve it.
Any questions? Yes.
Just a quick clarification. Thank you. I commend your work and
Thanks.
innovation here. You mentioned that you wanted to extend it through the end of the year.
Yes.
I believe the recommendation reads September 1, ending December 31st. Is that due
Correct.
to the TPAC schedule?
Yes, they've got,
Okay.
that's when all their big events hit, and they'd like to do it again.
So nothing from today to September 1st?
No, actually, our season, if you give me that, ends right around May, and so we don't think that we can actually do the education piece of it before then. And so during the summertime, I don't think we'd gather the amount of information needed. So beginning in September, that's when our new Broadway season really kicks in. And along with our resident companies and everything, I think we could gather a lot of good information from September through December 31st.
You know, they're good folks to work with because it's an area we can control. They can control it, we can control it, and we can try to move the zones around and see how it works.
Would you mind stating your name for the record, just procedural?
My name's Jeremy Knudsen.
Thank
I'm
you.
the Director of Event Management at TPAC.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Motion to approve?
I'll second that with a comment. Brent, like I said, this is an area I think I really appreciate working with Uber and Lyft and all the rideshare partners. And as mentioned, I think people are creatures of habit, so this consistency, I think, will really go a long way. And I think, as Neil mentioned earlier, as we're looking at other events like Providence and stuff, getting people in that habit earlier so they don't create the bad habits. But with that, I second the motion.
It's been first and second. Any questions on the motion? I will say on the reducing from 5 to 3, it feels kind of, I trust you, but it feels kind of like NASCAR. I'm envisioning like a pit stop. Kind of, if that's enough room, then it sounds like the average of cars are just getting in and out, but just be conscious and aware of that. Yep. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. Thank you for your comments. Mr. Smith, the updated item 9.0, is there anything?
Thank you. I just want to.
Can this be quick?
Yes, this will be very quick. Metro is going to do some AV upgrades in this room, and it will affect this availability of the Sonny West room for the July and August Traffic and Parking Commission meetings. We have secured an alternate venue at the MNPD East Precinct at 936 East Trinity Lane for the July and August meeting. I'll remind you again next month, and then I'll remind you a whole lot in June. The other thing is that looking at the calendar, the October 13th meeting happens to occur during Metro's fall break. Sometimes it is difficult to achieve quorum during fall break. If the commission wishes to meet on an alternate day, we can get this room on the Monday before or the Monday after, or even on Tuesday the 21st. But if the commission wishes to do that, please let us know so that we can secure this room. Thank you.
And with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Approved. Thank you all.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.